Tom, how you going?
Not too bad, how are you?
Yeah, good. How's your weekend?
Weekend was good.
Been off doing some photography again?
I have been, finally, after probably a couple of years now. Last bike race I photographed was in the summer of 2019, unbelievably. I mean, quite a lot's happened since then, as we know.
Yeah, I've had a baby. So you've taken the GoPro out with you and you filmed yourself photographing the Paris Roubaix, haven't you? The men's and the women's. And
we thought it might be a good idea to see if we can give our viewers a little insight into what it's like photographing a bike race.
In the pouring rain.
And it turns out it was in the pouring rain on this occasion. So yeah, a cycling photographer, a fairly unorganised one that you will learn in the next 10 minutes or so, just how logistically challenging it can be getting the shot on the day and producing what you want to produce for your clients.
Brilliant. So if you haven't already, give us a like or subscribe and enjoy this insight.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Granny Ring. I think we've nailed the name there, Tom. Anyway, this is a slightly different episode to our usual sort of format. We are today having a look in the day in the life of a cycling photographer at a professional race. This race was the Paris Roubaix women's event and men's event this year. I travelled to the race with my good friends at the Cycling Podcast. We travelled on the Thursday ahead of the race and in preparation for a Friday riding out on the cobbles and getting a feel for what the professionals were in for. So we did a ride on the Friday and it was great fun, and it really brought it home just how hard riding over cobblestones is. And Friday was a dry day as well, so it was much easier, but it really just shook my whole body to bits, and we only did, 3 sectors, if that, and yeah, it is tough. Right, got my accreditation, big Q. There it is. Van sticker is on the van, as you can see. Here at the start in Deignan now for the women's race. Went to the start and photographed all the women coming through and signing on and being presented to the fairly small crowd, but very enthusiastic crowd. I think you can see from my live video there was a nice little atmosphere going on. For this race I'm carrying in my camper van, I've got 4 camera bodies, all Nikons. I've got a big 500mm lens, I've got a 70-200, I've got a 35mm fixed, I've got a 50mm fixed. What else have I got? I've got a 80-400 lens as well. So we're off to photograph the first section of cobbles. This will be a bit of a historic moment for the women. This will be the first time they've been over the cobbles at Paris Roubaix, so we thought at the podcast and myself thought it would be an amazing place to start the day, really, and that proved to be a good choice because it was at that moment where Lizzie Deignan made her move from the peloton, and we witnessed that. She made a move and was not to be seen again by the peloton for the rest of the day. The second section of cobbles I chose to photograph the race at. The cobblestones were getting pretty treacherous here. The rain was starting to fall. It was in the middle of the race and you could see people getting tired, and that was causing crashes, as you can see in the video here. I don't know what it was about this little section, but there was only one obvious path through it where the bikes weren't just slipping away from underneath them. It was quite amazing to be there actually and see just how fast they were going and how hard they were hitting the floor. It was it was interesting. Now we had a race to the finish, racing the girls on their bikes and myself and my colleagues in the car racing to the velodrome. As a photographer, I try and capture things slightly differently, pull out of a scene a bit more and give a view of a landscape, try and give a unique perspective on the event, and make the image slightly more timeless, if you like. There's people that will just have to photograph the event as a news story, so they are photographing the incident, the major incidents, and the finish line, and the celebration, and the man on the podium. I guess what I try to do is make something that has a bit more context and longevity. Paris Roubaix is a tricky one for that because it's so flat. You can't get any real elevation and therefore have a good overview of it. You're down on the ground with the riders and all the fans, so it does make it tricky, but I love the possibilities that are still there, and I just want to try again, and I know there's an amazing picture in it and I'm going to strive to get it. I haven't got it yet, but it's there, I know it. Running to velodrome, shuffling to velodrome. We made it there only 10 minutes before they arrived, and it was touch and go as to whether they would let me into the centre of the track where you can photograph everyone as they finish and the faces of anguish or pain, and just they all look like they've been through something when they finish this race. So that's the place to be, and I only just made it. Lizzie Deignan came in, I think, 2 minutes ahead of the rest of the bunch, and she got to enjoy the lap of the velodrome and then celebrate in style. That was the women's race concluded then. The rain started pouring down very shortly after they had finished, and you could tell that it wasn't stopping, and the forecast was that it wasn't stopping either. So it meant that we were in for a wet, rainy Roubaix. Well, that was the ladies' race done, and I don't know, it's too early to say whether it was a success, but got the start, 2 sectors of cobbles, and we just made the finish. Lots more was possible according to some of the other photographers, but I felt like that was pretty productive actually, so just sort of downloading the pictures now. As you can see in this glamorous location, and there's a very soggy sandwich on the floor, and it's absolutely chucking it down, so whatever happens, even if it stopped now, the cobbles will be wet for tomorrow, and I don't think it's stopping. It's very set in, as you can see. That is a blanket of grey, so yeah, tomorrow is going to be very, very interesting. I've never seen cyclists look so nervous in all my life. at the start and on the podium being presented to the crowd, it was just an atmosphere about the place that they were about to embark on something that was going to be, I'm going to say it, epic. That was here. There are 30 sectors of cobbles.
5 in the morning for the women's race.
I'm going for a not very ambitious 3 in the finish. Looking at the map, we tried to intersect the race at a section of cobbles, and as you can see, we're unable to get through. It was totally flooded. That's how bad the rain was. There was no way we were driving through that. A movie star car had the same idea, and we all decided there was no way we could drive through that. So we managed to find a section of cobbles. It was a long walk. This was my first mistake, really. I walked too far along the section, and my equipment started getting wet, and I didn't have any real means to keep it protected. And from that moment, the day got very challenging, because I had steamed up lenses. One of my cameras had failed, and this was the first section, so not a good start at all. And then I had to run back to the van after they passed through in order to get to the Arenberg Forest. My waterproof trousers had got so heavy that they were basically falling down around my ankles. They wouldn't stay up because they were so full of water. They basically did not do what they were supposed to do. At the Arenberg Forest, I had to find a combination of cameras that still worked. I had one camera that was still operating and one lens that was usable for shooting down the long straight of the Arenberg Forest. It wasn't the one I'd choose normally, but these were exceptional circumstances, and I just had dripping wet cameras, and I was getting frustrated, I'll be honest. So we got some shots there. The faces of the riders were just ghostly almost as they came through there, and we witnessed Luke Rowe fall off, and he caused a crash of someone else. So getting out of the parking at the Arenberg, that was tricky. So you've got all the fans and all the journalists and all the photographers all trying to squeeze out of a tiny bit of parking all at the same time, and they are dashing to try and see the race again. We made the call at that point that we would go straight to the velodrome rather than try and catch it again. It was on reflection overcautious, but it'd been such a stressful day that we just thought it would be the right thing to do. So photographed the finish pretty conventionally, in the hope that I'd be able to catch the riders as they came in. But as it turns out, well, I knew this beforehand, but I thought I might be able to be a bit cheeky and still get over there. But there's only 5 photographers that are allowed to photograph the winning rider coming in, and then there's a particular area where all the remaining riders come in and meet up with their team and collect drinks and get sort of washed down a little bit. And that is the place where you see the faces and the sort of anguish and the joy and the despondency, and you just get, it's just a gold mine for amazing photographs. Straight after the race, it was up to Calais to get the Eurotunnel back to England, and I was at the women's tour on the Monday, so it was a case of editing on the move as and when I could and getting images off to various clients. Tricky. So I was up quite late that night, and then off to Banbury in the morning, which is, I don't know, it had similar qualities to Roubaix actually.